In this tutorial, we're going to go over how to create the Titan Kids 2 in Fusion 360. Bring it into Adobe Illustrator to create some custom artwork, then bring it back into Fusion 360 to extrude this artwork into our part, and then create a render of our part. But first, let's take a look at the official drawing from Titans of CNC. In the drawing, you'll notice that there is a dashed line going down the center of our part. This is a construction line that we are going to use as a mirror line for our part. Outside of that mirror line, you'll notice that all the other geometry is created with circles. With that in mind, let's jump into Fusion 360 and create this part. The first thing that we're going to create is our construction line that is anchored to our origin and goes straight up the workspace. To do this, we're going to press L on the keyboard to create a line. You'll notice that Fusion 360 is prompting us to select a plane to start our sketch onto. For beginners, it's easier to come over to the view cube in the upper right hand corner and click on the word top, and this will show you the bottom plane, which is our top view. This is a good habit to start your sketches on this plane. Now that we've selected our plane, we are going to left click on the origin and drag straight up. You'll notice attached to our line is a vertical constraint. Notice that our line is solid in color. We want to change this into a construction line by selecting it and then pressing the letter X on the keyboard. This will change it into a dashed line, which is considered a construction line. Now that we have our line in place, we're going to add in our circles. Press C on the keyboard, which is a shortcut for a circle. The diameter of our circle is 1 inch 500 thousandths. This particular circle has some dimensions that are anchoring it to its origin. So we're going to add those in now by pressing D on the keyboard. Going to the center of our circle, down to our origin, and then gesturing downward. This dimension will give us our width, which is 750 thousandths. Then we'll repeat this again back from the origin to the center, making sure that our extension lines are horizontal, which will give us our vertical dimension. This dimension is 2 inches 250 thousandths. You'll notice that the outside of our circle went from blue to black. This is indicating that it is fully constrained. Now that we have this circle in place, we need to draw in our next circle. Our next circle is going to be drawn over in this space here. We're going to left click and start dragging this out. This particular circle is dimensioned as a radius on the drawing, so we're going to type that in as a mathematical formula. So 6.21 multiplied by 2, and then that will give us our diameter. Notice right now that is a massive diameter circle, so we're going to use the mouse wheel to zoom out, and then we can gesture this around. You want to ensure that this circle is on the outside of this particular circle and not on the inside like this, because when we start adding in our next constraints, it will try to constrain it in the incorrect direction. With that in mind, we're going to add in our first constraint, which is our tangent constraint. To add this constraint in, you do need to make sure that the outside of the circle is selected before you use it. We're going to make our way over to constraints and then down to tangent. Now that this is selected, we're going to select the perimeter of the other circle, and you'll notice that they will lock themselves together. So if I take this circle, you'll notice that this circle is permanently attached to the smaller circle now. We want this particular circle to be anchored to our origin. We're going to use a coincident constraint to accomplish this. Again, back up to our constraints, and then down to coincident this time. We're going to click on the circumference of this circle, and then in addition, the center location of our origin. Notice that our circle went from blue to black in color, and again, this indicates that this is fully defined. Now that we have these two circles in place, we are going to mirror this as a sketch. We're going to go over to Create, down to Mirror. In the dialog box, the very first thing that it's prompting us for is what objects do you want to mirror? Well, the two objects that we want to mirror is the large diameter circle and the small diameter circle. Those are our two objects. In the dialog box, we'll need to select the mirror line, and our mirror line will be our construction line that we created first. Afterwards, go ahead and press OK in the dialog box, and you'll notice this will replicate that geometry on the other side of the mirror line. With that in place, it's time to extrude. This time we can't use a selection window, so we are going to physically click on the geometry that we want to extrude, which are these three pieces. According to our right view on our drawing, this needs to be 750 thousandths. And what this will do is it will take our sketch of that particular shapes that we selected, and it will extrude it to that dimension. Notice that our sketches turn off at this point. If you ever need to turn them back on, you can do this in the browser list. The next thing that we're going to add in is our corner fillets. We're going to press F on the keyboard for a solid body fillet. We're going to zoom into the tip here of our heart, selecting this. The dimension here is 100 thousandths, and press Enter on the keyboard. Coming to the other side of this heart, we're going to go right in between these two circles here. And again, F on the keyboard for our fillet. This time, this dimension is 190 thousandths. And press Enter on the keyboard. The last thing that we're going to add in on this particular part is our edge break. To add this in, we're going to go to Modify and down to Chamfer. We'll select the two top profiles of our part and type in 80 thousandths. And again, press Enter on the keyboard. Now that our model is complete, we're going to go over to our bodies and change the physical properties of this model. In the browser list, we'll go to the side caret next to the folder labeled Bodies, right-clicking on our body that we have here and gesturing down to Physical Material. In our dialog box, we'll open up the folder labeled Metal and then gesture down to Aluminum 6061. To apply this material type to our part, we'll left-click and hold that left-click down and drag it onto our part. In our dialog box, we can go ahead and press the Close button now. We're going to go back to our bodies in the browser list, this time gesturing down to Properties so we can check the mass and volume of our part. Now that you've checked the mass and volume of our part, we're going to create a projection sketch on top of our part so we can take this into Adobe Illustrator. To do this, we're going to press the letter P on the keyboard. Fusion 360 is prompting us, where do you want this new sketch to reside on? Well, we want this one to be on the top of our part. Make sure to take a look at your view cube and ensure it says top. After we selected that particular face, we're going to click on it again and notice it turned blue. In the dialog box, we'll go ahead and press OK, and then we can finish our sketch. If you go over to the browser list, if I turn the visibility eye off on our body, you'll notice that this will show us these purple projected lines. Anytime that you see purple lines on Fusion 360, this indicates it's a projection sketch. I'm going to turn this model back on. and then make our way down to our sketches folder. You'll notice we have two sketches here. We're going to label sketch number 1 as our part by doing a slow double left click on sketch number 1. And then sketch number 2, we're going to label this as DXF because this is going to be our export. After we've labeled these, we're going to right click on our DXF and gesture down to Export DXF. In the dialog box, we can go ahead and press OK. We don't need to change anything here. And then in this new pop-up window, we want to ensure that we are labeling this as the Titan Kids 2 DXF. And then make sure that this is checked here to save to our computer. I like to store everything in my downloads. This is so I can flush them out easier. If you need to change this destination, you can go ahead and click on these 3 little dots and then select the destination you would like from. Now that we've saved our DXF, now it's time to jump into Adobe Illustrator. In Adobe Illustrator, we're going to create a new file, which will be an inch-based artboard. This is imperative that you are choosing inches as our unit of measure, so that way we get the scaling correct coming from Fusion 360 into Adobe Illustrator. Now that we have our artboard in place, we're going to place our part, coming over to the File menu, about halfway down to Place. You'll find the destination of where you saved your part from. Mine happens to be in the downloads. And then you need to make sure that this box is checked where it says Show Import Options. This will give us the ability to make our part the original size instead of scaling it. Hit Place. In the dialog box, you'll see this radio button. The default is to scale to fit artboard. However, if you have a really large artboard, you're going to have a really large part to go along with it. We want the radio button to be for original size. Go ahead and press OK in the dialog box. And then now it's prompting us to land our part. From here, we can change the orientation of our part by coming over to the corners and holding down Shift. You can also do this in the Properties tab by changing the angle. We want to create some artwork inside of our part here. For this example, I'm just going to write Mom inside of it. I'm going to use the Type tool and do a header of text. I'm going to change the font type that will be more suited for Mom here. And then make it a little bit bigger to fit into our heart. If you are using text inside of Adobe Illustrator, you do need to change your text from an editable font into an outline. To do this, you'll ensure that the text is selected, and the Properties tab will come over and we'll press this button, Create Outlines. This will change your text into a vector, so we can extrude it inside of Fusion 360. Now is a good opportunity, if you are well versed in Adobe Illustrator, is to use a shape builder tool, things like that, to combine shapes together. We're going to export this file out by going to File, down to Export, and Export As. In the dialog box, again, you need to choose your destination. I prefer Downloads. I'm going to label this Titan Kids Artwork. As the file type, you need to make sure that you are on a DXF format. And again, come over and press Export, and then OK in this dialog box. Back in Fusion 360, we're going to come in and import this file. However, the very first thing that we need to do is turn off the visibility of our DXF file by pressing on the visibility eye, and notice that turns it off. Going to our toolbar, we're going to go to Insert, down to DXF. In our new dialog box, it's asking us where do you want to put the sketch. Again, make sure your view cube is labeled top. We're going to select the top of our part. In the dialog box, we're going to come to the file folder here to select our file. We're going to select our file from our computer. And then in this new dialog box, again, choose your destination and then select your artwork and press open. You have to be really careful when you're bringing in artwork from Adobe Illustrator. If your artwork is coming in and it's on top of your part, you can use these manipulator arrows here to ensure that it's off of the part. Fusion 360 likes to add in automatic constraints. And if you do have one of these automatic constraints come in, it's very challenging to figure out which one is constrained to the part. In our dialog box, we can go ahead and press OK. Now we're ready to move our artwork. We're going to press M on the keyboard for move. In the dialog box here, we want to make sure that this drop-down menu is for sketch objects. And now we're ready to use a selection window to select our sketch. To use the selection window, we're going to come over to the upper left-hand corner, left-click and drag. And then this will select all of the sketch entities within our selection window. Back to our dialog box. I prefer using point-to-point for really precise things, so we're going to select that option. And then we're going to choose our origin point. Somewhere on the outside of our heart from our artwork is going to be a point. So this happens to be this particular point. Yours may be different. I'm going to select this. And then automatically Fusion 360 moved on to our target point, which is going to be the same exact location on our 3D model. Notice it's going to precisely move our artwork onto our model. If you chose a different location other than that target point, you can always go back to the dialog box and hit the little X here and then reselect it. After you're done, go ahead and press OK in our dialog box, and we're ready to extrude. There are two different ways that we can extrude. We can extrude and join things together to our part, or we can extrude things down to cut things away. We're going to press the letter E on the keyboard for extrude. In this example here, I want this outside shape to actually go inside the part. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to select everything that I want to extrude as I cut. Because I'm going into the part, I'm going to type in a negative value here of 50 thousandths. And notice this is going to take that highlighted blue area and it's going to extrude it into the part. Go ahead and press enter on the keyboard. And this will show us our extrusion. This is an opportunity if you want to play around with different extrusion heights and things like that. Again, you can use positive values to join things on, negative values to cut things away. Now that we have our 3D model completed, there's a lot of powerful things that we can do inside of Fusion 360. Some of these things are like programming CNC machines, 3D printing, but for this example, we're going to come over and we are going to create a render of our part. To do this, we're going to go over to our Change Workspace button and then down to Render. This will change us into the rendering workspace. Starting off at the top of our toolbar, we're going to go and change the appearance of our part. In the dialog box, you'll notice that the default selection is to change the color of the entire part. You can click on this radio button next to faces and just choose individual faces if you want to. I'm going to choose metal to aluminum to anodize red for my part. Again, left clicking this, holding down that left click and drag it to our model. You'll notice this will change the entire color of our part. For this example, I'm going to change this face inside here to silver. So imagine if we had some post machining happening. I'm going to click the radio button next to faces, and I'm going to go back in and drag in the original aluminum color from my design. This will change that face to be silver again. Notice that we have the little portions of the O that we need to fill in. So I'm going to select those. Once you've changed the appearance of your part, we can go ahead and close out of this dialog box, and then we're ready to set up the background scenery. In our toolbar, we're going to go to Scene Settings, and then in our dialog box, for this example, we are going to change the color of our background. For this one, I'm going to use this slider, and I'm going to choose like maybe a little bit of a purplish pink color. So I'm going to use the slider to choose that color gradient, and then I'm going to click on a location here and press apply in my dialog box. I'm content with this color. If you want to change other colors, all you have to do is kind of click through these gradients here, and then go ahead and press OK, and then close out of this dialog box. Right now is the opportunity to orient your part the way you want it to be rendered. Once you start the rendering process, if you try to alter your part, the computer is going to continuously try to render it and restart. So you want to make sure that you have your orientation correct at this point. In our toolbar, we're going to come over here to our in-canvas render button. You'll notice at this point that the screen is going to get really pixelated as it's creating our render. In our bottom right-hand corner, you'll notice that we have our progress bar, and you'll notice this little triangle here. You can actually manipulate this through the progress bar, and this is going to tell us how far we want the rendering to go before it stops. Once it reaches that little triangle there, we're ready to capture the image. To do this, we're going to go back to the toolbar and select the Capture Image button. In the dialog box here, go ahead and press OK. We're going to label this as the Titan Kids 2. And then again, we're going to make sure that this is selected to save it on my computer. And again, choosing a destination that you are aware of. If you need to change it, you can select these three little dots here. Go ahead and press save. And then this will save it onto your computer. We need to stop our render. So back in our toolbar, you'll notice the in-canvas render stop button. Otherwise, Fusion 360 will continuously try to render this. In our File Explorer, we can open this up and we can make our way over to our downloads. And then here is that image that we just saved. From here, there's a lot of powerful things that you can do with this image, including taking it into a graphic design software like Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop, so you can manipulate that. Now's a good opportunity to save our project. To save our project, we're going to go back over to the Save menu. In our dialog box here, we're going to label this the Titan Kids 2. And again, we need to select our destination. If you don't have a Titans of CNC project here, I highly suggest making one by going to New Project, labeling it Titans of CNC. As you can see, I have my years dated in here. I'm going to select that here and then press Save. And that's it. This is how you create the Titan Kids 2 in Fusion 360 and apply some artwork to it and render it at the very end. Thanks for joining.